Hey guys, Youngblood with you for your Should You Buy video on the new Mirai Fury variant, this one called the LX. Not to be confused with the acronyms being used in RSI's Auroras, where the LX is luxury. The LX here is actually a racing version, which tracks with the Razor, who utilizes that as well in their naming convention, which makes sense, all being MISC or MISC subsidiaries. The Fury LX is a newly flyable ship now that's available in 320, and it is for sale on Warbond for $50, which means new money into the game, or if you want to use store credits, you're at $55, which tracks with the same pricing that the first two Furies had at their time of sale. So what do we know about the Fury LX? Let's talk about it a little bit, and then we can start diving into the should you buy recommendation. First off, let's look at things that are similar or the same between the LX and the other two variants. The size is identical, 7 meters long, 5.4 meters wide, 3 meters tall, and when landed and compressed, there is a wide range of ships that it can fit into, including things as small as a Cutlass Black and larger, meaning that there are a whole lot of ships that are able to carry a bunch of these, or at least a single one of these ships, and kind of become their own little carriers for snub fighters. Now, none of the Furies, which are all true snub fighters, come with quantum or jump drives, so it is very dependent on other ships to carry them around from place to place and across and in between systems. They also all have relatively small hydrogen fuel tanks on board, carrying a total of 27,500 fuel across all three varieties. But small is perspective based, with most of the smaller ships in the game sharing, similar smaller fuel tanks, and when the snubs are considered, it's actually pretty good. They all share the same durability in their hull in regards to how they take physical damage, so that tracks with the other varieties of the Fury. And lastly, they all share the same crew size of one person, making them all very similar in their overall, layout and feel. While overall the ships are all very similar, there are some key differences. The first and most important differentiator is about how and what they are purpose-built for. The MX was made to spam missiles and help distract targets and protect a larger ship. The Fury base model has 4 size 2 guns to be able to pester and unleash pretty decent firepower against targets, mostly in support of larger ships as a pest, but also as a fairly competent dogfighter. Finally, the new LX is made to be a racing ship, and in order to accomplish that goal and to improve the flight model, there's more changes that make that happen. The most notable is that there is no weaponry in the form of guns or missiles, so this is really best and only suited to being a fast and easy to transport vehicle. Aside from that, in the interest of making it faster, the body seems to have an HP reduction of 212 over the other variants, along with the overall hit pool at 3,082, which is less than half of the other two, which is probably a placeholder value that will eventually indicate that we will have less armor on this ship compared to the other two Furies. Either way, the LX is a very fragile ship, which, if you can hit it, won't hold up well to fire, though it is small and fast and nimble, so it is hard to hit. Without the weaponry on board, and maybe again artificially reflected with armor, is the mass of the ship is at 14,232 kilograms, which is 1,700 less than the Fury and the MX. Now, could that be the weight of missiles or 4 size 2 weapons? I don't know, but the weight difference is noticeable. The last change would be the stock components that the ship comes with, which differs in that the LX comes with the Falco shields compared to the cloak on the other two, and different coolers, with the LX coming in with the ice plunges, with the other two having hydrocells. The ice plunge cools at a lower capacity than the hydrocell, but considering you don't really have any weapons, you have a less need for cooling in theory. But then you also kind of look at the MX and you say, okay, well, missiles don't really use a lot of heat, so really it seems that the MX is the one that's kind of winning in the cooling department. It doesn't really matter. You can swap components to your liking, but it is worth calling out. I would also remind you that most of the components are still pretty normalized in the game right now, so none of this matters that much. The last note on the ship that I would call out in a difference is that the hardware when you're looking at parts of the ship is the maneuvering thrusters, with the LX gaining 4 maneuvering thrusters to replace the lost firepower, making it the most maneuverable of the group, thus fitting its intended purpose of design. When it comes to the flight model, the LX is the fastest, as you would expect, being 20 meters per second faster in SCM speed, coming in at 240 meters per second, and plus 40 meters per second on top speed with afterburner and cruise, topping out at 1290 meters per second, which makes it one of the quicker ships in the game, which is great for a racing ship. You also have improved angular maneuverability, with pitch being at 57, yaw at 54, and roll at 245, which basically equates to very marginal improvements in pitch and yaw, but roll being actually fairly improved over the other Fury models. From some flight testing myself and some org mates completed, it appears that the improvements in thrusters and weight reductions result in approximately 20 to 30% improvements in acceleration, providing greater ability to get off the line and also change directionality with more control. And when you pair that with the improved roll over the other models, you can shift vectors in a way that is a meaningful improvement. Now, when we actually go to compare the Fury LX to some of the other racers in the game, basically going like for like, we see that it doesn't really match up with the speeds it can attain, with things like the Razor LX being able to reach 1400 meters per second, the M50s at 1342, the P72s at 1340. Acceleration, though, is a different story, where the Fury LX is better in G values than all three of the aforementioned ships by a healthy margin. And then we look at the pitch, yaw, and roll. The Fury LX wins in those categories again as well, meaning that overall you have a more agile and responsive ship in the Fury LX compared to other traditional racers. I would call out that it does appear that in 320 some of the blackout and redout thresholds have changed a little bit. So while some of these numbers may seem good on paper, there may be some impacts to your ability to change directions and have all of this boost and power behind you. If you're not able to control the way your ship reacts, you may find yourself blacking out and crashing into an asteroid. Overall, I think what you're seeing is a different way you may want to do racing and how you may want to down select to the ship that is the right choice for you based on the race at hand. So when it comes to should you buy the Fury LX, I think it comes down to a very situational decision. There's a couple of good starting questions to ask. First off, do you even have a ship that can carry it? Because if not, you're not even going to make it to the race in the first place. Secondly, do you feel you need to have weapons? Because if you do, the ship's not going to cut it. It ain't got no weapons. Now, where I think it gets a little more nuanced is in the type of racing I think that this is going to succeed in. The ship is small and incredibly agile, which makes it well suited for races that are going to involve asteroid belts, debris fields, canyons, those types of places. Those places where you're going to be needing to shift, turn, and avoid a lot of items. This will be the best racer of the group in those types of arenas. Now, the Fury lineup all suffers from a pretty significant flight model impact if you lose an engine or a thruster, so durability is not your friend, and you really need to be careful about what you hit while you're racing, and considering the original Furies are pretty low in HP, and this one is even lower, you are flying a paper airplane. Now, if the race is a long race with many straightaways, I think the higher top speed of the other ships will eventually win out. So while your acceleration may allow you to get ahead, the top speeds that are more than 100 meters per second faster than you are will make up that difference over time. So basically, if you know how you want to race or the types of places that you want to fly and compete, then you'll know if this is the right choice for you or not. If I was picking, I would say in most instances, the Razors and the M50s of the world are going to be the more well-rounded options, where experience and comfort in the cockpit will give you a little bit more value and flexibility, and the jump drive lowers your reliance on transport, even though bigger systems will probably still behoove you to utilize that service. You're not going to want to have to jump around Pyro in an M50. It's going to take you an eternity because you have to refuel all the time. Now, there are a few other aspects that I think the Fury LX can perform well in. One being if you just need or want a small ship that you're able to pull from a ground pad, then I think this would be a really good option for that. I also think that if you have an LX in a larger ship, it could be really helpful to allow you to have a quick space-to-ground excursion without having to land the larger ship. Or even more valuably, being able to split up your team and have better success in scouting out and finding valuable items like minerals or rocks or wrecks or whatever you're looking for. More eyes in different places is going to do you well. The final note would be that the cost makes the price to get this ship pretty attractive. And while I don't really think the return on the investment is good for most in the game, if you want an entry-level racing ship that could also serve as an LTI token in the future, the price makes it a decent choice. Overall, I think the LTI token and the entry-level racers would get a yes from me on a recommendation here, but the rest overall would probably get a no. Overall, this is a very cool little ship. I like all of the Furies, but the price to buy them in the game will be pretty reasonable, and the racing aspect isn't super developed at this point, and in the future, I kind of see it as a side gig at best, even though others may end up seeing this as a true profession. So that's what I have on this for now. Hopefully you learned a little bit about the ship and the video helped you out. If you have questions, please let me know, or opinions of your own, get them into the comments. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more coming soon. Have yourselves a wonderful day, and take care.